call the entire game, whether it's a charge or a block or a deflection that was wrong or a foul that should have been called that wasn't called or vice versa. Give me a 48-minute report. And people that will understand that there's so many mistakes that the referees make over the course of the game that referees, ready folks, don't decide the outcome.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
How fragile are these guys? It's amazing. They're supposed to be the greatest athletes in the world, and yet they can't walk and chew gum at the same time without getting hurt, for goodness sakes.
That Trout injury really is a bummer, too, because people thought he was going to have a big year. And I look, I don't feel bad for the Angels. I don't like Mike Trout in Anaheim. I thought he should have left when his contract was up.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
Devastating loss to Georgia Tech, where they made significant coaching errors, but Miami, with all of these changes, obviously looking to churn over this roster and upgrade the talent level.
Don't sleep on Rick Pitino. Listen, at the end of the day, the portal is the portal, Mike. Don't matter where you came from, it's where you're going and how much money can you get.
Inside the transfer portal, only on SportsGrid.
And now you have to qualify in these majors. You got to go do it, man. Like, and it just comes off really petty to sit up there and be like, I'm not.
You know what you signed up for. So I don't like the pettiness, and I 100% think Taylor Gooch should be in the major championships. Mm-hmm. So in the same note, I'm saying this, but also it's like, hey, this is the world in which we live in right now, and you don't deserve anything.
Only on SportsGrid.
Good morning. Welcome to NewsWire on SportsGrid. Hope you had a great Mother's Day. Craig Mish back with you for our Monday edition of the show as we recap everything going on in the wacky world of the National Basketball Association. Some fun series to recap and cover for you, also as well as the National Hockey League as the Stanley Cup playoffs moves on. We've got Mike Mazzeo in the house from Legal Sports Report, Matt Lutovsky covering Major League Baseball for us on the show. And, of course, we preview tonight's games in the NBA with Coach Young. He's got you in about 45 minutes from now. So we stream live every day, Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern here on NewsWire, covering the business of sports as well. Let's get started with last night's recaps in the NBA. And wouldn't you know, this series is upside down. The Minnesota Timberwolves and Denver Nuggets, no team can win their games at home. We've seen that come to fruition thus far. As Denver, down 0-2, is right back in the series with the Minnesota Timberwolves. They win again last night in Minnesota, 115-107. And yes, the series is now tied at 2. Minnesota favored in the game. The dog wins outright. That's just the way that this has been going. Jokic had 35 points, 7 rebounds, and 7 assists. Aaron Gordon, also a huge game, 27 points, 7 rebounds, and 6 assists as well. Jamal Murray did hit a wild half-court shot to end the first half. We're all tied up at 2. And now the series is going back to the Mile High City in Denver. And Mike Malone, the head coach of the Nuggets, says this one was all about the extra performance they got from Aaron Gordon and how well he took them down the stretch.
That was a key stretch, 8-0 run. You know, we were playing a great first half, and then they started getting some momentum. The game got really ratty there. And, for us to take that 8-0 run, to build it to, I think, 15 at the break was really impactful. And obviously they try to throw a deep outlet, goes right to Jamal. And, Jamal winds up draining an incredible shot. And you need plays like that sometimes. And obviously in that third quarter, we didn't defend. That was by far our worst defensive quarter. But I thought we had a lot of guys step up tonight. I thought our bench was amazing. I really thought Reggie, Justin Holiday, Christian Brown were incredible, 27 points. Reggie took a charge, made a 3. Justin made 3 threes, and Christian obviously closed the game with his defense, his shot making, and stepped up and made all of his free throws. Nikola does what he does. Jamal does what he does. But I thought Aaron Gordon was, the Weldworks Juicy Bits MVP of the game. He was incredible.
MVP of the game, says Coach Malone for Gordon. We'll see what happens in Game 5. Meanwhile, we've got a series now between the Indiana Pacers and New York Knicks. And you talk about a comeback. Boy, Indiana looked fantastic in last night's game. 121-89. This is the Pacers team that we saw during the regular season. They came out hot when the game started. First quarter, bench scores 17 points. Pacers end the first quarter with a 20-point lead, 34-14. This game was kind of over at the half, 61-49. Tyrese Halliburton, 20 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. TJ McConnell chips in 15 and 10 assists in this game as well. And it was all giving credit to the performance of McConnell for Indiana Pacers star Tyrese Halliburton, who needed him to come through.
Yeah, it just feels good to get a win. But we got to understand at the end of the day, all we did was do our job and win, 2 games at home. So we understand the magnitude of Game 5, and we'll be prepared for that. I think we all just communicated, just not being so amped that, the score was what it was. You know what I mean? I think just understand that this is, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much you win or lose by, it's a win or a loss. It's all that really matters. So at the end of the day, all we did was, win a game and handle our business at home, truthfully. And now going back to the Garden where, we lost 2, felt like we should have got a win there. So we got to be prepared to go for 48 minutes when we get there. Yeah, just his energy. I mean, when he checks in, there's not many people in the NBA better at doing what he does, and that's bringing energy, off the bench. And so when he checks in, it allows me to play off the ball a little bit more. And at times, he might look at me like, oh, you got it. But I want him to run so I can kick it ahead so he can get downhill. But, yeah, his energy is just contagious, and everybody kind of flows off of that.
One of the bigger games at Madison Square Garden in the NBA playoffs in a long time coming up this week. Meanwhile, will LeBron James reunite with his son on the professional basketball court? It appears there's a chance of that happening next season, as LeBron James' son, Bronny James, has been medically cleared to play in the National Basketball Association. There are multiple reports that say this morning that this is where James is headed. He's headed to the NBA. Didn't have a great season at USC, but naturally had some medical issues that sort of stymied that. He's heading to the National Basketball Association draft, where he will be taken, and what LeBron James decides to do is the big story coming up this summer. Meanwhile, the Atlanta Hawks went into the lottery over the weekend thinking, yeah, we'll probably get the 10th pick, 11th pick, somewhere along those lines. How about the number 1 overall pick? They almost made the playoffs, 36-46 on the season, 10th place in the East. I guess that does count as playoffs these days. Regardless, they get the number 1 overall pick. Washington gets 2. Houston gets 3. Detroit had a great chance to get the number 1 overall pick. They ended up 5. Again, bad luck for them. We'll talk about that later in the show. We have Nike announcing that Aja Wilson is getting her own signature shoe. It's called the A1. Nike has named Wilson to the brand's roster of signature athletes, a group featuring Serena Williams, Megan Rapinoe, Naomi Osaka, and Sabrina Ionescu. Congrats to her. Also, Great Osabor, the top available player in the transfer portal, has officially committed to Washington. He'll be the highest paid known player in college basketball. $2 million of NIL deals it does pay to play in college, that's for sure. Paul Skeens made his major league debut on Saturday. He did not disappoint. He hit 100 miles an hour 17 times on Saturday against the Cubs. He also struck out 7. Unfortunately, the bullpen let him down. 84 pitches to get 12 outs. It was a very exciting debut for this pitcher. Needless to say, he's got a bright future without a doubt. Shohei Ohtani was not in the lineup on Sunday for the Los Angeles Dodgers. He had some back tightness after Saturday's 5-0 win in a very exciting series this weekend in San Diego. He does expect Ohtani to return on Monday. The Twins beat the Blue Jays 5-1 yesterday. They took 2 out of 3 this weekend. The Minnesota Twins are the hottest they have been since 2018. They've won 17 of their past 20 games. And also, in case you missed it over the weekend, last night, Brandon Nimmo with a walk-off home run for the New York Mets against the Atlanta Braves. He missed the game, or was thought to miss the game, with an issue with an oblique, but ended up playing in the game and hitting a walk-off home run. That's how you do it for Brandon Nimmo. In the National Hockey League, the Florida Panthers are one step closer to moving on They go to Boston. They were down 2-0. They came back and won 3-2 in this game. The Cats 1 game away from the next round. Meanwhile, the Vancouver Canucks defeated the Edmonton Oilers. Final score 4-3, went over the total, a very high total, 6.5, keeps going over. This went to 7. In case you missed the announcement early from the NFL this morning, the Kansas City Chiefs will play the Baltimore Ravens in Game 1 of the upcoming NFL season in September. It will be on Thursday Night Football. And meanwhile, at the Wells Fargo Championship, which essentially is the preview for the PGA Championship coming up this week, Rory McIlroy wins another title. Match play situation with Xander in the final round at Quail Hollow in Charlotte, North Carolina. He now heads into next week's PGA Championship, the closest thing to a co-favorite that he has had this season with Scottie Scheffler. Who will win the PGA Championship? Will it be Rory? Will it be Scottie Scheffler? We'll have a preview with Brady Cannon coming up a little bit later in the week. All right, coming up next here on the show, Matt Lutovsky is going to join us courtesy of Sporting News. We go over everything happening in Major League Baseball. Is Shota Imanaga the Cy Young Award winner and the Rookie of the Year in the National League? It could potentially be that right now. He's been the best pitcher, and he's a rookie pitcher as well. We'll also talk to Matt about Paul Skeens' debut. Then stay tuned because we've got Mike Mazzeo coming up a little bit later as we'll discuss everything happening in the business of sports wagering. So we're off and running here on this Monday here on NewsWire. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back after these quick messages right after this. Don't go away.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
A lot of books. And outside of the New York area, the Canes are actually favored in Game 1 of this series. I'm seeing it right now. I'm looking. I see a -115 Canes, Rangers -105.
I like the 6 and 7 games prop, like I took with Boston, Toronto, which we now know is going to cash. I think it's got a chance to go the distance. It's going to be a long, tough, close series.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
The Cam Rising stuff last year with Utah, 3 months of pretending he was questionable with a torn ACL, ridiculous.
It's a lot of gray right now when it comes to this stuff, and we really are. When people say we're in like the second or third inning of sports betting, that's why I agree, because there's so many of those situations that are very, very difficult to explain to a novice.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
A surprise winner on the PGA Tour. Taylor Pendrith ends up winning his first PGA Tour win.
He was pretty darn lucky to win. Ben Coles should have won that tournament, also seeking his first PGA Tour victory. He went into the 18th hole, the easiest hole on the golf course, with a one-shot lead, and he was there in 2, just less than 30 feet from the cup.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. A fun weekend of baseball highlighted by the Major League debut of Paul Skeens on Saturday for the Pittsburgh Pirates against the Chicago Cubs. Matt Lutovsky joins us. We're going to dive into some baseball news and notes. And, Matt, the first inning of that game, I was watching this live, obviously. I wanted to make sure I saw this. First inning, it looked like Skeens was going to have no trouble whatsoever. Major League debut, living up to the hype, striking out everybody, getting easy outs. And then you remember it's the major leagues, right? Like this is not going to be easy. And certainly Skeens, I think, a very impressive debut to say the least. But it was not as smooth as he would have liked, I'm sure. But I can only imagine being super nervous And maybe that's indeed what happened when he faced off against the Cubs.
Yeah, I think we saw, sort of the entire spectrum in that start. We saw the generational talent and the sort of one-of-a-kind nastiness that we had heard so much about. The stuff was there. There's no doubt about that. I mean, that is a rare gift that is going to take him very far. But like you said, we also saw a very young, inexperienced pitcher who still needs to get used to going through lineups a second time and just maintaining that sort of composure and that level throughout an entire game. So we saw the good, we saw a little bit of the bad, and then, of course, there was the rain and the bullpens, and it was a walkathon and all that good stuff. But I mean, overall, you got to be impressed, I think, by what we saw with the triple digits 17 times. And this is the type of kid that you build an entire rotation around and a team around. So you're right that it wasn't exactly a glittering start on all levels, but it was certainly one that I think the baseball fans who have been waiting, especially the Pirates fans who've been waiting for him to come up, can take a lot from.
Yeah, and you're right. I definitely think a mixed bag is the best way to put it, but I think all systems go for this kid. He's going to be fantastic. Speaking of fantastic, best pitcher in the National League this season has been Shota Imanaga of the Chicago Cubs. His ERA is 1.08 on the season. He's striking out a batter per inning. He's been fantastic. Every start he's made for the Cubs, he's won. He's undefeated. I don't think there's any question at this point he's the heavy favorite to win Rookie of the Year. I think the only question at this point, Matt, is that can he pull this off with both? Can he win Cy Young and Rookie of the Year this season?
Yeah, if the season ended today, he would. But there's still a lot of season to go. There's no question about this. And I think we see this sometimes with the foreign pitchers, especially the older ones like him, where he comes over and whatever it is, whether it's something about like there's something a little deceptive about the delivery, or just, they have a lot of experience. They're not coming in, raw, like we mentioned, Skeens coming in kind of young and inexperienced. This guy's been pitching at a very high level for a while, and they come in and they do great, and they start hot, and everyone's oohing and on about them, and deservedly so. But it's just natural. Of course, he's not going to finish the year with a 1.08 ERA. He's going to start giving up some walks. And he's a fly ball pitcher and hasn't given up a ton of homers. We know that's going to change. It's just the way it is. The weather gets warmer. The ball starts flying a little more. And that's what's going to happen. But at the same time, he's been fantastic. Hardly any walks. A decent strikeout rate. He's inducing a lot of weak contact. These are all repeatable things that he can continue doing. So while there is some natural regression, just some law of averages, that's going to happen. A lot of the underlying stats are really, advanced stats are really solid for him. And I think he can keep it up enough to at least win Rookie of the Year. He's certainly the heavy front runner, and he has a big head start. Like if you're a bettor out there and you think, okay, I'm betting Skeens now, he maybe got up a little earlier than we thought, and he's going to take over and be that guy down the stretch. He certainly could be. But Imanaga's got a heck of a head start on him. Cy Young, that's a little tougher ask. And I don't know if I'd bet that right now. I just don't think the value's there. But again, he's got a head start on it over all these other pitchers who got some losses and whose ERAs are a little more dinged up than his.
Yeah, haven't been a lot of rookie hitters doing great this year. I mean, Imanaga, Yamamoto, Jared Jones, top three as far as odds over on FanDuel to win the Rookie of the Year. Minnesota Twins, Matt, are having some start, without a doubt, to their season. It was not a great April, but they have completely turned it around in May. Twins beat the Blue Jays yesterday 5-1. This is arguably their best run in years. And they're getting speaking of starting pitching, they're getting a ton of starting pitching. Bailey Ober and Pablo Lopez. And it's just been Joe Ryan. I think Paddock has also been good for them. I mean, injuries are just creeping up around the league, but fortunately for the Twins, thus far, so good. Right now, as it would appear, they're going to have to catch Cleveland and hold off Kansas City and Detroit to win this division. They told us the Central was not going to be good in the American League, but I care to differ here. Every team, you got 3 teams over 500, and Detroit is creeping around there too.
Yeah, you look at the Twins, top 10 offense, top 10 pitching staff, that's going to get it done. The one thing I think that's interesting through this stretch, and it's always tough to assess schedule in baseball, especially at this early. What's a tough schedule? I don't know if we totally know. But if you look at who they've been playing since they really started this hot streak, there haven't been a lot of really top teams. They played the Mariners in there, who are in first place. They played the Red Sox, who are pretty good. But they've been beaten up maybe on some of the lower teams a little bit. And, they have dealt with some injuries. No Royce Lewis. Correa was hurt for a while. Buxton's hurt now. But we're going to start to see how for real they are, these next two series against the Guardians, against the Yankees. I think we're going to find out a lot more. And, they're just due to kind of start coming back to earth a little bit, maybe losing some close one-run games. But if they can get through these next two series, win them both, maybe go 4-2, I think you're going to have to really start looking at the Twins a lot more seriously, especially if they really do well against the Guardians, because like you said, that's the team they're chasing. That's the team that's still in first right now, even after this hot streak from the Twins. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how they handle this. And if they can keep playing well offensively and with the rotation.
Yeah, I would agree. Real quick, before we go, Matt, we got about a minute to go. Dodgers are still the favorites to win the World Series. Nothing has changed there. Yankees have moved up. Phillies have moved up. Orioles have moved up a little bit. Texas is about where they were to start the season. Does this look right to you?
It probably does. It's probably about right. I think the Phillies and Orioles are the best values on that list. But I do understand why Dodgers, the Braves, the Yankees, I understand why they're still ahead of those teams. But, man, those teams are playing well, and I think they're going to continue playing well.
Yeah, I would agree. All right. Great to see you, Matt. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
A lot of books. And outside of the New York area, the Canes are actually favored in Game 1 of this series. I'm seeing it right now. I'm looking. I see a -115 Canes, Rangers -105.
I like the 6 and 7 games prop, like I took with Boston, Toronto, which we now know is going to cash. I think it's got a chance to go the distance. It's going to be a long, tough, close series.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
The Cam Rising stuff last year with Utah, 3 months of pretending he was questionable with a torn ACL, ridiculous.
It's a lot of gray right now when it comes to this stuff, and we really are. When people say we're in like the second or third inning of sports betting, that's why I agree, because there's so many of those situations that are very, very difficult to explain to a novice.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
A surprise winner on the PGA Tour. Taylor Pendrith ends up winning his first PGA Tour win.
He was pretty darn lucky to win. Ben Coles should have won that tournament. Also seeking his first PGA Tour victory, he went into the 18th hole, the easiest hole on the golf course, with a one-shot lead, and he was there in two, just less than 30 feet from the cup.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I think the most fascinating series going right now in the NBA has to be this Minnesota-Denver series, because it looked like the Minnesota Timberwolves were well on their way to ousting the defending champions. In fact, they won the first 2 games in the Mile High City in Denver, but it didn't mean a thing. They went back to Minnesota. Guess what? The champs showed up. They won Game 3, close game. They won Game 4, not so much. So what is going on in this series? The home team ever going to win a game? Kind of hard to say at this point. But regardless, last night's performance from Aaron Gordon was really one of not just himself, but also making sure his teammates got involved in the game. You would call it, I guess, selflessness, which is what Aaron Gordon says he is. In fact, he was asked about that last night and his ability to get the ball to his teammates and where he learned to distribute and essentially make it about everybody else and not himself. And then Nikola Jokic walked in the door during the press conference, and here it is.
A lot of times in this league, that's a hard thing to do when you're on a team like this. Where did you learn to be selfless?
That's a great transition, Katie. You saw big fella step in the room, huh? That guy, man, that's where I learned to be selfless. I learned it from him, man. He's the best basketball player in the world, 3-time MVP, and he's the most selfless, humble dude that you'll ever meet. So if a 3-time MVP can do it, I can do it too.
Makes sense, and we'll see in Game 5 who ends up coming out on top. Anthony Edwards, by the way, let's give this kid some credit. He has been fantastic for the Timberwolves, regardless of the outcome of this series. Now, I know that there are some of you out there, maybe on the East Coast, and I'm on the East Coast too, that are all upset. Like Craig just said, the most compelling series is Minnesota-Denver and not Indiana-New York. I'm just being honest. I'm more interested in that series because I don't think the Knicks or the Pacers are going to the NBA Finals, but I digress. Christian DeBlock has his opinion from our social media team on what exactly is happening with the New York Knicks after 2 wins against Indiana in close games, in games 1 and 2. They've fallen flat in games 3 and 4 in Indiana as they head back to the Garden. Here's Christian DeBlock with his opinion on what he saw this weekend.
The Knicks are in serious danger of losing the series. Losing by 32 in game 4 doesn't mean a whole lot. At the end of the day, it just counts for 1 loss. To this point, the Knicks have been able to withstand every injury, but the one they may not be able to overcome is OG Anunoby. This season, the Knicks are 26-5 with OG Anunoby in the lineup. Without him, they are just 13-16. Major difference maker. The Knicks do have 2 of the next 3 games at home, but if Anunoby is unable to return at any point in this series, the Pacers will be favored to advance. Back to you, Craig.
Thanks, Christian. Spoken like a true New York fan. When it's going well, everything's great. When it's going bad, the sky is falling. Series is far from over. We will see. Speaking of which, it's far from over to determine the impact of Messi on Inter Miami. Financially speaking, some of the numbers are coming in. And in fact, with Inter Miami still going strong, the sports professor Rick Haro takes a deeper look as to the financial ramifications and the value of the franchise.
Sports Professor Rick Haro, it's another $1.3 trillion business of sports with your Sports News Minute. The impact of Inter Miami and the MLS on South Florida. Grand Prix over. What's the next major event? Miami Heat rush toward the finals? Not this year. Panthers maybe. Dolphins off season. But what about Inter Miami? Well, the revenue from last year, according to Forbes, is up 78%, and the value even more, up to $1.03 billion, $118 million in revenue. And by the way, the international appeal of this franchise plus Messi was unmistakable as Visa signs a major sponsorship deal. Europe, the Caribbean, Latin America, and oh, by the way, the U.S. and South Florida, uniquely involved with Inter Miami, MLS collaterally, Messi, and obviously South Florida. A big deal for the MLS, big deal for South Florida and Miami. Sports Professor Rick Haro, Sports News Minute.
All right, thanks very much, Rick. As somebody that lives in South Florida, Rick, by the way, is sort of my neighbor. Rick lives in Jupiter, Florida. I live in Broward County, a little bit south of Palm Beach County. But I can obviously speak to all of this. I live in the same county that Inter Miami is currently playing in before they get their new stadium. It does seem like South Florida is very big on their stars. You get a star to South Florida like LeBron James, Shaquille O'Neal, around those sort of, Dan Marino, Tyreek Hill. We just sort of gravitate to Messi and those types here. But, naturally winning is the only thing that are going to get people to go to these games. All right, coming up next, Mike Mazzeo joins us from Legal Sports Report. We dive into the latest on player props. Will we see them this college football season? Don't go away.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York team has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
A lot of books, and outside of the New York area, the Canes are actually favored in Game 1 of this series. I'm seeing it right now. I'm looking. I see a minus 115 Canes, Rangers minus 105.
I like the 6 and 7 games prop, like I took with Boston, Toronto, which we now know is going to cash. I think it's got a chance to go the distance. It's going to be a long, tough, close series.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
The Cam Rising stuff last year with Utah, 3 months of pretending he was questionable with a torn ACL, ridiculous.
It's a lot of gray right now when it comes to this stuff, and we really are. When people say we're in like the second or third inning of sports betting, that's why I agree, because there's so many of those situations that are very, very difficult to explain to a novice.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
A surprise winner on the PGA Tour. Taylor Pendrith ends up winning his first PGA Tour win.
He was pretty darn lucky to win. Ben Coles should have won that tournament. Also seeking his first PGA Tour victory, he went into the 18th hole, the easiest hole on the golf course, with a one-shot lead, and he was there in 2, just less than 30 feet from the cup.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire. Before you know it, we're going to be doing our college football programming here on SportsGrid. That's coming up soon. I mean, we are approaching the end of May, and then all we have is June and July, and college football returns at the end of August. I guess the biggest question at this point is, should we be taking an early look at player props for college football, or is that just going to be a big waste of time because we're just not sure if they're going to be around come the fall? Mike Mazzeo is going to weigh in on that opinion and a whole lot more, Mike, and thanks for coming on the show. It does seem like every show I do here, I have somebody from Legal Sports Report coming on and entertaining this conversation. And as they say, where there's smoke, there's fire. I guess the question is, at this point, do you foresee any sports book that is legal in the United States offering college player props this football season based on what the president of the NCAA said this weekend?
Yeah, Craig, and the reason we do that is because last week in New Jersey there was another gaming conference, and so what was the topic? It was NCAA player props. Mark Hicks, one of the executives from the NCAA, spoke. John Steinbrecher, the MAC commissioner, he spoke as well. John seemed a little reticent about this prop ban, said, well, if, people aren't doing it legally, they're going to do it elsewhere. But obviously, as we've seen in Ohio, the amount of handle bet on college player props for the year 2023 was like 1.5%. And so, as Jay Snowden of Penn Entertainment, their CEO, said, we don't think this is going to materially affect us that much in terms of handle and revenue, so we're fine with it. I think, as far as I know, I think Montana seems like the only state that said they're not going to do this because they haven't had any instances of athlete harassment, but, we've seen a growing list, right, since Baker came out and said he wants this banned. Ohio said they'd ban it. Vermont, Maryland, Louisiana have all said they're going to get rid of it. It looks like, New Jersey has legislation, North Carolina has legislation. I think in both the Republican and Democratic, those bills are led by opposite sides of the chamber. So that's super interesting. Obviously, both sides, everybody kind of sees that, harassment is, unnecessary, unacceptable. And then these athletes, a lot of them, as Mark Hicks said, have been betting on themselves, Craig, which is super interesting, right? We saw Butte in one game, I think it was LSU Florida State a couple years ago. He had taken, I think, his over on catches and was yelling at his quarterback during the game when he didn't have any. So that's something that's, can't happen, right? Everyone wonders why, guys can't bet on themselves. Here's somebody that's causing problems. Maybe the game plan's going exactly the way it should, but here's a player who has more pressure on himself to, hit his prop to make money, and that's going to cause, potentially him to have a bad relationship with his quarterback night, or the offensive line, or the other receivers, or whoever it is, and that's why this can't happen. So, yeah, I mean, in a year maybe perhaps this could change. Doesn't seem like Montana's going to do it as of yet. Certainly a lot of other states are leaning that way toward a player prop ban. Yes, maybe people go offshore, but I think for the NCAA this is a PR win because they don't want the harassment. I mean, I did have a regulator from one state say, everyone's a jerk. I didn't use the word jerk online. It starts with player props for college. At what point does it end? Because there's always going to be, unfortunately, people who, bet more than they can chew or whatever it is. And so this is an issue that's not going away, and we'll see what's next.
Yeah, it's just such an easy conversation to have if indeed the handle on these player props, as you guys have reported, is so low, 3, 4, 5%, whatever it is. That's number one. Number two, I just don't understand the easiest answer for all of these things that come under these indiscretions, Mike, is just maximum bets placed on these things. Like, you can even allow these player props to happen as long as the max bet is $50 or $100. I mean, what are these college kids going to do? Get like 100 of their friends just to make $1,000 to bet online? I mean, it's just so easy to do. I don't understand it. I never will. Why they just don't max out the amount of these on some of these kids. But we'll see what happens. My feeling is, like you said, an easy thing to just eliminate come the fall. All right, now let's get to the NBA. This is a little bit tougher. Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, basically is throwing his hands up in the air, sort of like Roger Goodell is in a way, as we saw, saying, hey, look, there's only so much we can do with sports betting. There's only so much we can limit this. And inevitably, it's kind of like, feels like pushing, what do they say, kicking the can a little bit to say, hey, look, we can't handle it. So maybe the sports books are the ones that should be handling it.
Yeah, Craig. So the NBA has sportsbook partners, right? I think it's FanDuel, DraftKings, BetMGM, maybe a couple more. And so Silver basically said, with those specific partnerships, it's easy to say maybe to them, in the case of the Jonte Porter lifetime ban with two-way players, hey, guys, let's not offer this anymore. And I think, as far as I know, just polling sportsbooks over the weekend, they seem like they're fine with that. Hey, if you don't want to offer the under on the 13th man on the roster, that's perfectly fine with us. Now, maybe if it's, LeBron, Steph, Luka, Anthony Edwards, we'd like to offer those props. Obviously, people are betting on them. It's going to be less easy. First off, those guys are going to want to do it given the money they make. And secondly, it's going to be less easy for anybody to pull anything off with them because, as the Jonte Porter thing, DraftKings was able to spot this on its daily highest, bet players on props. How is Jonte Porter number one in this list? It's usually superstar guys, rookies, whoever it would be, major market players. The 13th man on the Raptors getting top prop bets for unders doesn't make any sense, and that's how we're going to catch this thing. So, the legal market in that sense has been good. As Silver said, our other sports books, just because our partners say it, are they going to then comply as well? Because if the regulator allows these bets, then, it's a huge process in terms of trying to get them off. So I'd imagine, again, like NCAAs, if you want to not have two-way players or lesser paid players and then maybe the unders on those particular players off the board, I think most sports books would be all right with it because people aren't betting heavy on this and the revenue they're getting isn't that heavy. Now, if you want to expand it, maybe you get some pushback. But I think, again, this is, Craig, another PR win for the books, the league, the regulators, the integrity monitoring service, all those people who work together to just say, hey, let's get rid of this in this specific instance, see how it goes. If there is a problem, maybe they can shift it. But that seems, again, like a PR win for all parties involved if they just get rid of these specific bets.
Yeah, and again, it's part of the conversation as we evolve in the world of sports betting. And speaking of evolving, it feels like we're coming to the end of the story potentially, although they're going to make a movie about it, I guess, with this whole Ipe Mizuhara is now pleading guilty to all of these allegations and charges that he stole all this money from Shohei Ohtani. Last week, we learned a little bit more about this, how the money was funneled in to a casino through one of these reality stars on the Housewives show. So, I mean, I don't know. Is it over? Is it over yet? Do you think, Mike? Is this it? I mean, it feels like they want this to go away as quickly as possible. Like he's just pleading guilty and trying to push it away. Do you think that that's what's going to happen here?
Yeah, Craig, I think MLB hopes so. They have such a huge stake in this thing. And so Ipe Mizuhara, the former interpreter of Shohei Ohtani, is accepting a guilty plea on stealing $17 million from Ohtani's bank account to fund, his gambling losses to an illegal bookmaker. Like you said, who would have thought Real Housewives would be involved at the centerpiece of this? Seems like they are. I think the Daily Mail reported over the weekend that Real Housewives is figuring out, like, is it legal to show the reaction from some of the other people on the series to this? I mean, it's unbelievable, Craig. Who would have thought, like you said, we got a production company making a TV series about this thing. It is wild. And then, you see some of the details in this latest release by the Justice Department. You have this guy getting $60,000 in dental work, Ohtani agreeing to pay, and then this guy grabbing the money and then taking it for himself. You saw him buy, I think, $325,000 worth of baseball cards from a reseller. And then what was he going to do with them? He was going to go sell them to try to make up his gambling debt. I think he impersonated Ohtani at the bank like 24 times. I mean, it's just like eye-popping, the stuff that's coming out of this thing. So like you said, Craig, MLB has stake. They have a business relationship with the sports books. They want this thing to go away. I think they're super happy that, at least as far as we know, Ohtani's been cleared in this thing by federal authorities, so he's not part of it. And like you said, I think they want it to go away. I think we have some court proceedings coming up this week, so we'll be following it. It's wild. Who knows where it's going, but it's crazy.
Yeah, it should be a fun show if they end up making it. I'm sure that no one's going to be happy that they're going to make a movie about this, but I think it is coming. All right, Mike, great stuff as always. Thanks again for coming on NewsWire. Really appreciate it. We'll check you out on social media and over at LegalSportsReport.com. Thanks again.
My pleasure, Craig. Thanks a lot for having me. Have a great week.
All right, Mike Mazzeo with us. Coming up next, Coach James Young is in the house recapping last night's NBA games, and we've got 2 games tonight, Boston, Cleveland, Oklahoma City, Dallas. We'll preview those as well. You're watching NewsWire on SportsGrid. We'll be back after these messages. Don't do it.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
A lot of books. And outside of the New York area, the Canes are actually favored in Game 1 of this series. I'm seeing it right now. I'm looking. I see a -115 Canes, Rangers -105.
I like the 6 and 7 games prop, like I took with Boston, Toronto, which we now know is going to cash. I think it's got a chance to go the distance. It's going to be a long, tough, close series.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
The Cam Rising stuff last year with Utah, 3 months of pretending he was questionable with a torn ACL, ridiculous.
It's a lot of gray right now when it comes to this stuff, and we really are. When people say we're in like the second or third inning of sports betting, that's why I agree, because there's so many of those situations that are very, very difficult to explain to a novice.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
A surprise winner on the PGA Tour. Taylor Pendrith ends up winning his first PGA Tour win.
He was pretty darn lucky to win. Ben Coles should have won that tournament. Also seeking his first PGA Tour victory, he went into the 18th hole, the easiest hole on the golf course, with a one-shot lead, and he was there in 2, just less than 30 feet from the cup.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire on SportsGrid. We've got some series that could be going the distance, at least a 6-game series in the East and the West, and we could even get further down that road tonight. We'll see. Coach Young is with us to take a look back at what happened yesterday and also preview tonight. And, Coach, this is what we wanted. We wanted competitive series in the NBA. I think in particular, as we sort of look back to yesterday, I think the Pacers-Knicks is sort of predictable here. I think that that's fair to say, is that the home team won their games. But you tell me, Coach, what is going on with the series between Minnesota and Denver here? How in the world did Minnesota go to Denver and win 2 games And how have the Nuggets completely turned it around? They win yesterday 105-107. I think that's a good place to start.
Well, it's a great place to start, Craig, and always a pleasure to be on with you. But let's be honest, folks, it's the play of the superstars of the Denver Nuggets, the defending champions, who didn't play well, particularly in Game 1 or Game 2. You can really forget about Jamal Murray throwing the heating pad onto the floor or whatever, shooting 3 of 18. Let's be honest, they've been really, really good. The last 2 games, Jamal Murray, 19-point shot at 43% from 3, 8 assists. You can go to Nikola Jokic and his outstanding play, 35, 7, and 3. But the guy that we maybe need to look at that's really been playing well the last 2 games on both sides of the ball, we got to talk about Aaron Gordon last night. 27 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. And what he's done, particularly, Craig, on the defensive end of the floor, defending Karl Anthony Towns and really limiting Karl Anthony and what he can do has really been outstanding player. Karl Anthony Towns, if you look at the last 2 games, Craig, 5 of 18 last night, only 7 shots in game number 3. He's been outstanding. But then the last part, really quick, folks, is going into the series, as great as Rudy Gobert is defensively, Rudy Gobert cannot guard your best player. He's not a defender. And I want people to understand this. I hope people understand what I'm saying. He's a weak side shot blocker and a rim protector and a good rebounder. Guarding someone one-on-one, he can't do. And it's starting to show right now. I wonder if Coach Finch starts to put him more on the bench more and maybe go more with Naz Reid, who's a far better defender, especially guarding a big like Jokic, than Rudy Gobert.
All right, well, if that's sort of the way to predict how the series continues, is it fair to say that the Knicks-Pacers series is just whoever has home court in Game 7, as we know it's the Knicks, wins the series? Because, Coach, Indiana played – is this fair to say Indiana played better in New York than New York has played in Indiana? And is that fair, or is that just due to injury? What do you think?
No, it's injury. You know what, Craig, if you look at it, the Knicks went on a 24-8 run to end the third quarter of game number 3, and then their legs literally gave out. 0 of 7 from layups around the basket in the fourth quarter of game number 3, and now finally the adjustment has been made starting in game 3. Naismith is guarding Jalen Brunson. It's something that I've talked about ad nauseum with this network. After the first game, you got to put a bigger body defender on Brunson, because I know McConnell gives him fits, but a number doesn't do it to him because of the fact that Jalen Brunson can bump you off your spot and create contact and fouls. Well, Naismith is stronger, and you can't bump him off. Brunson's not stronger than him. He's not taller than him. So to me, I think that's happened. And then obviously the injury to OG Anunoby, it's really been a problem. Obviously he played really well in game number 2 before he went out with the hamstring injury. New York's running out of bodies. And to me, what Rick Carlisle is doing is masterful. Get the game up and down and say, all right, Tibbs, can your guys make it to the finish line? I will say this, and this could be a really bit of a crazy take. The best thing that happened to the Knicks, honestly, is they got blown out. That is the best thing that happened to the Knicks, because Brunson only played 31 minutes. Hart played 24. DiVincenzo played 32. Those are, honestly, folks, those are pedestrian numbers for the 45, 46, and in Hart's case, 48 minutes a game. The only thing that's been a problem with New York with this series, only one day in between games, they don't get a ton of rest.
Yeah, and for Hart in particular, as you mentioned, he's basically been an Iron Man for that team like nobody else in the playoffs. Okay, so Cleveland did get a win in the series, a shocking win. They were 13.5-point favorites. They won outright in Boston, and then things normalized last game in Cleveland. Boston is 8.5-point favorites again tonight. Total 207.5. Do you have a lean anyway on this game, Coach? It feels like Boston's going to win the series at some point. I just don't know if they're going to cover all these games along the way.
I think Boston gave you their stinker in game number 2, kind of like they did against Miami. And to me, what's really key here, Craig, is the fact that if you're Joe Mazzulla, you have to do one or two things. You have to let Donovan Mitchell just go off and let him score and neutralize everyone else, or you go to the opposite, which is lock up Mitchell and let everybody else create. They got down to business again in game number 3, letting Donovan Mitchell go absolutely nuclear. I would be looking at Donovan Mitchell's points prop. I'll be looking at his 3-point prop because the usage is going to be there. I just don't think they have the offensive firepower. They need Jared Allen back desperately to try and muck this up and have a really good defender at the rim, someone can O-board, get dunks. They don't have that. Cleveland is in deep trouble. They'll lose by double digits tonight, and this will be closed out in 5 games.
All right. And then finally, tonight, it looks like, Coach, to me, that FanDuel, the odds makers, all the odds makers are just throwing their hands up at this Thunder Mavericks series. Mavericks are now down to 1-point favorite tonight. I mean, who knows? I mean, Dallas leads the series 2-1. They could certainly win. Oklahoma City could come back. The series has been competitive, total 215. I'm sure you have a position tonight, Coach. I don't know how strong it could potentially be. It just seems like these two teams are just very evenly matched.
They're very evenly matched. To me, it's going to come down to big man play. You've had Lively and Gafford play really well the last 2 games combined for 20 points and 11 rebounds. I do like Dallas. I think they've kind of neutralized the series. Here's the thing, folks. Dallas is up 2-1, and like Kyrie has done a great job defensively, hasn't gone off yet offensively. Luka has been really up and down. At some point, those two are going to put it together, and if they do, there's nothing that can happen on the other side. By the way, P.J. Washington, that's a magic elixir. Now, get away from, Charlotte, get away from Washington, and then you start playing like an all-star. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it has been the case. All right, Coach, great to catch up with you again. Thanks for coming on the show. We'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Craig.
All right, we'll be right back with more NewsWire after this.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
A lot of books. And outside of the New York area, the Canes are actually favored in Game 1 of this series. I'm seeing it right now. I'm looking. I see a -115 Canes, Rangers -105.
I like the 6 and 7 games prop, like I took with Boston, Toronto, which we now know is going to cash. I think it's got a chance to go the distance. It's going to be a long, tough, close series.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
The Cam Rising stuff last year with Utah, 3 months of pretending he was questionable with a torn ACL, ridiculous.
It's a lot of gray right now when it comes to this stuff, and we really are. When people say we're in like the 2nd or 3rd inning of sports betting, that's why I agree, because there's so many of those situations that are very, very difficult to explain to a novice.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
A surprise winner on the PGA Tour. Taylor Pendrith ends up winning his first PGA Tour win.
He was pretty darn lucky to win. Ben Coles should have won that tournament. Also seeking his first PGA Tour victory, he went into the 18th hole, the easiest hole on the golf course, with a 1-shot lead, and he was there in 2, just less than 30 feet from the cup.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. So, you know what leagues have done, NBA and NHL and now Major League Baseball have done to try to avoid like extreme tanking. They added this lottery. It's been going on a long time, of course, in the NBA, NHL, and now baseball over the last couple of years as well. But it doesn't always work for the teams that are at the bottom. And my gosh, the Detroit Pistons are finding that out the hard way. I mean, is this stat correct? They've won 54 games the past 3 seasons, and they just can't get that number 1 overall pick, or even 2 or 3 for the 3rd consecutive year. And for the 2nd straight year where they put up the league's worst record, the Pistons are not getting the number 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 pick in the NBA draft. In fact, they got number 5 again, which there was a much better chance of them getting number 1 than even getting number 5. So as they say, those ping pong balls are not going in their direction. Now, sort of mixed results, I would say, as far as their draft picks over the last couple of years. But with the Atlanta Hawks getting the pick, it just kind of just goes to show that nothing is guaranteed. And maybe this is going to do away with some tanking in sports. It sort of feels like it's here to stay. I mean, after all, the Houston Rockets continue to lose, and they still get the number 3 overall pick. So I'm sure they're happy with that. But I don't think anybody in the league expected Atlanta, with, I believe, the lowest odds of almost anybody to get in, did get the number 1 overall pick in the upcoming NBA draft. Now, obviously, this is not as big as when Victor Wembanyama got drafted or anything like that. The Spurs, they've been super lucky. Remember them? They got number 1 overall pick in Tim Duncan, number 1 overall pick in David Robinson, and then got Wemby again this year. But Pistons definitely can't find a way. Maybe they should win more and get a better ping pong ball draw. Who knows? All right, in Port St. Lucie, in a minor league game, you don't see this very often, but again, it is Florida, so anything can happen. And this was not a Florida man story. It's a Florida turtle story. Yes, this is true. A turtle at a single-A game at Lecom Park in Port St. Lucie stopped the game because this turtle was, by the way, pretty fast. I saw this video. Ran onto the field, 2-0 lead. The Mets were leading, St. Lucie Mets over the Bradenton Pirates, and the game stopped. And the broadcasters were like, hey, look, it's a squirrel on the field. But it was indeed a turtle. None of the outfielders on the Bradenton Marauders wanted to pick it up. So they were just sort of like pushing it along. Now, again, some turtles are what they call snapping turtles. I don't know if this one was in particular, but somebody did run onto the field. It was a relief pitcher, of course, coming in to close, right, to save the day. His name was Mazzeo Cotto, grabbed the turtle, put it above his head, and then ushered it through the bullpen door. So we've had a bee delay this season, right, in Arizona. We've had a swarm of bees. We have different kind of animals all the time. Cats, dogs, maybe not dogs, cats running on the field. In this case, we had a turtle that slowed it down to a halt. No pun intended there. All right, the Mascot Hall of Fame. Did you know that it existed? If you did not, now you know. In fact, you can vote for the new class of the Mascot Hall of Fame, and there are some of the possibilities. You have Orbit from the Astros, Big Al from Alabama, Bernie. Remember Bernie? Do you know Bernie from the Miami Heat? That's the one I'm familiar with there. Kind of hard to see, I know, in that graphic, but Bernie is there. How about Mrs. Met from the Mets? Purdue Pete. You know what that, now I never knew what that was named. Now I know. It's Purdue Pete from Purdue. Also Talon from DC United. You literally can go online and vote for the Mascot Hall of Fame. Now, who gets my vote? I think I just made it clear that it is going to be Bernie from the Miami Heat. I mean, do we really need to put Mrs. Met into the Hall of Fame? We got Mr. Met in there, right? Mr. and Mrs. Met both. What has Mrs. Met done? Does Mrs. Met deserve to be in the Hall of Fame? Mr. Met does. Now, at the same time, I do like this Rosie Red of the Cincinnati Reds. I think that she deserves to be in the Hall. There you go. So you see Rosie Red there? That's who has my vote. I got Bernie, I got Rosie Red, and I got Big Al from Alabama. They get into my Mascot Hall of Fame. We thought we would end the show on a light note, and that will do it for our show today. Thanks again to Matt Lutovsky from Sporting News, and also thanks to Mike Mazzeo from Legal Sports Report, as well as Coach Young, and all our guest contributors to our SportsGrid Sound Off. Also, thanks to our associate producer, Frank, and our producer, Michael Cohen. I'm Craig Mish. We got the early line coming up next, followed by Pharrell. He's in the house. Coast to coast, 3 o'clock Eastern today, previewing the NBA games and NHL games as well. I'll see you tomorrow morning for our next edition of the show, every day, 11 a.m. Eastern, right here on SportsGrid. This is NewsWire, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern. And, of course, don't forget, you could also catch our fantasy content-related shows this weekend and every weekend. That is Saturday morning and Sunday morning with myself and Davis Maddock, and then Joe Pisapia and Matt Stryker as we get closer and closer to the upcoming fantasy football season. You want to make sure you're tuned in to that. Enjoy the rest of your day here on SportsGrid. See you tomorrow morning for our next edition of NewsWire.